I'm Clark County Poet Laureate Angela M. Brommel, and today J.M. Huck and Sheila Navarro are joining us to talk a little bit about their work as writers and their organization, We Write. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you were able to come out. I'd love to know more about you as writers. J.M., could you tell us a little about your journey as a writer?
Sure. So I worked in marketing for several years in New York, and I mostly did healthcare storytelling. So interviewing patients and doctors and trying to make sense of a patient's condition and how the doctor is helping them. Nowadays, I am dabbling in poetry and a little bit of flash fiction.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so you may know, if you followed State Poet Laureate Gail Marie Pallmeyer's project that was epistolary poems. I know you had one published on her site.
Yes, that was my first published poem.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I was very excited about that. Thanks.
Sheila, how about you?
So writing has always been something that is my safe space. Even when I was younger, I couldn't speak English, so writing and reading became kind of like my solitude. And it started as a hobby, just writing to my dad, writing to pen pals, and then people would hire me to write cards to their partners. So it became like this thing that I really enjoyed doing, and then I took it seriously. After 10 years of teaching high school, I was telling students every day, you have to write your story, you have to pursue your dreams, and I wasn't necessarily doing that. So I took a break and I got an MFA from Mills College, and that's when things really started rolling for me. And I've just been writing ever since.
Okay.
Yeah. And the idea of telling your story is in the fabric of We Write, I guess. Mm-hmm. So we are encouraging folks maybe who have never tried writing to find their voice, or others to develop their skill as writers.
Yeah, I strongly believe everybody has a story to tell, whether you're writing in prose or poetry. And I think a lot of people think you have to write a certain way and that there's certain expectations. But I think like crafting your own voice and just, writing things on the page is the first start. Yeah.
That's great. So how did the two of you find each other?
We met through a listserv, through a nonprofit organization called Kundiman.
Okay.
Yeah, and Kundiman is a nonprofit. They originated in New York, and what they do is amplify Asian American voices, and so they really cultivate emerging writers. And so I think there was an email that was sent out asking if anybody would like to host in-person programs, because Kundiman, although they're very, very active during the pandemic, they were online mostly, and they were starting to ramp up with their in-person offerings. And so they offer anything from salons, workshops, panels, and an email was sent out and asked if anybody wanted to do an in-person.
Right. Kundiman has different chapters throughout the U.S., maybe 5 or 6 chapters, so we're in the Mountain West region.
Okay. So you're in part of a larger group of this region, and then you popped in and said that you would do some of that programming here.
That's right, which is kind of strange because we're both new to Las Vegas, but we just got in there.
So you created We Write after this?
Yes. We wanted to name our entity of working together and give it a community spirit, so that's why it's We Write. Mm-hmm. It's not just Sheila and I leading the courses or leading the sessions, but also the attendees and people who come to our events.
Okay, wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about this first event?
Well, we wanted to write about place, do a generative session about place, and we thought of what are some unique places in the valley, and kind of top of mind were Springs Preserve and wetlands, but we chose wetlands. So we had a nice group, but a small one.
Yeah, so we talked about this idea of place, and I think a lot of times people have this idea of Las Vegas and what it is. And we really wanted to bring a different awareness to what Las Vegas is all about. And a lot of the attendees had never been to wetlands before and saw all the beauty and the majesticness that it offers. And so we responded to a lot of different prompts about place. Towards kind of in the middle of the session, students were encouraged to kind of explore wetlands, draw inspiration from that, and then they were able to write kind of like their own visitor's guide. Mm-hmm.
So that was in June. Do you have something planned after that?
So our next event is on Saturday, September 9th from 1:30 to 3:30. Our in-person events are sponsored by Kundiman. And this one will be at Left of Center Gallery, which the topic will be, well, we're calling it painted poetry.
Okay.
And it's inspired by haiku and haiga, which are short poetic forms from Japan.
So does that mean that you also are doing online events?
Yeah, so we have a couple of events that we're kind of in the early stages of planning. I don't know if anybody knows this, but it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop this year.
I did know that.
Yeah, and so a lot of my writings inspired from that, from music and from the Bay Area, because that's where I lived for a long period of time, and there's a certain culture there. And so I wanted to celebrate that. So next month, August, I believe August 13th or 12th, we'll have an online offering called Hip Hop Poetry. And so we'll be celebrating hip hop, writing about some of the songs that came out during, early 90s, late 80s, responding to that. And then in October, we'll have another online offering, which is also Filipino History Month. And we're thinking about doing something around that topic.
Wonderful. So before we end today, I was wondering if both of you could share a little bit about what you've brought and do a little reading for us.
Sure, so I can start. Mm-hmm. I'm also a visual artist, so I experimented with some concrete poetry in this zine, and I'll read it and then I'll open the whole zine. Okay, once. Wild water, now folded out of earth into wire, blue, black, silver, fire. So what's kind of cool about this is that it has a design, and I think something like this could be framed.
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful.
It's interesting to look at. Mm-hmm. So this was, I learned this technique I learned zine making through Avant Pop, which is a bookstore and commercial center, and they did a workshop in Office of Collecting and Design.
So this is great to see what's come from that. Thank you.
So I'm writing a piece that I wrote during a Kundiman class. It was a class about poetry and performing. So part of it was online. It was very interesting. We wrote a little bit of haiku and performed it. So this is just a little bit of that. I am a silver quarter in bed, flirting with wild horses and silk pillows. I am an exploding strawberry moon, ripe in sweet bites in a tart July. I feel like macrame fingers tethering emerald knots like the sinewy shape of the letter S. I am breakfast at noon, talking to my plants at 3, betting on black at 5, and at 8, smiling in suede like a Santo Niño in September.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would love to do whatever we can to let more people know about your events, so please feel free to post them on the Clark County Poet Laureate community page on Facebook, and then we will link to your information too. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We are going to have some changes this fall with the Poet Laureate program, so stay tuned here and look on our site. I think this fall I'm going to try to maybe do a few less things myself, but so I can go out and visit what everyone else is doing too. Thank you so much for stopping by.